Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining me today. We have a dramatic story that demands attention. The headlines read, shocking. NATO's $32 billion offer exposed, Traoré refuses to sell Africa's soul. Now on the surface this may sound sensational. But beneath it lies something far more important. A pivot in international power, a test of African sovereignty, and a revealing look at how the United States and the wider West are engaging with Africa in 2025. In this video we will examine the African side of the story, then the US side, compare them, and finally consider what it all means moving forward. No fluff, no platitudes. Let's get into it. First, the Africa story. Africa today is at a crossroads. The continent holds vast resources, a young and growing population, and enormous potential. And at the same time it is navigating a shifting global order. Among the many African leaders who stand out right now is Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso. The precise reported figure of $32 billion being offered by Western allied forces, including possibly a NATO-linked initiative, is not independently verified in all its details. But what it represents is clear: a large external offer of infrastructure, security, and resource access in exchange for alignment and influence. What makes this story startling is that Traoré is said to have refused to sell Africa's soul by rejecting the deal. Whether the wording is literal or hyperbole, it signals that he, and perhaps others, are placing limits on what they will accept in external partnerships. Why is this significant? For decades external powers have approached Africa with a blend of aid, security partnerships, trade deals, and strategic access. But what many African nations are increasingly saying is, we will engage, but on our terms. For instance, a major analysis notes that for many Africans the idea of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization is tied to the Cold War's legacy of external imposition, and the younger generations simply do not feel connected to it. In the Sahel region especially, security instability and historical interventions have left many wary of foreign footprints and conditional deals. CSIS+1. On Africa's side we see several themes. 1. Sovereignty. Traoré's refusal is a statement of sovereignty, deciding who controls your resources, who sets the agenda, who partners you accept. 2. Diversification of partnerships. Burkina Faso under Traoré and other states in the Sahel have been shifting away from the traditional Western security aid model and exploring alternatives. For example, Russia has re-established its presence, reopened embassies, and deployed advisors in Ouagadougou and elsewhere. 3. Risk of external deals. Large financial offers come with strings. Accepting them may mean security bases, favorable resource access for foreign firms, alignment in voting blocs or policies, or even implicit obligations. Hence the term, sell Africa's soul, becomes relevant. If you accept massive offers and lose substantial autonomy you may end up worse off long-term. European Council on Foreign Relations +1. Now let's look at the US side of the story. What is the United States doing in Africa in this era, and how does it tie into this narrative of big offers and sovereign pushback? First, US policy is shifting. The United States is moving away from the traditional aid and treaty model towards something more transactional: trade, investment, resources, security partnerships, but always with one eye on competition with China and Russia. One recent analysis notes the US emphasis now is on commercial diplomacy and strategic resource access in Africa rather than simply humanitarian aid. Second, the US is grappling with limits. For example, in the Sahel the withdrawal of US troops from Niger and the termination of some cooperation agreements are signs that the old model of embedded Western military presence is under strain. Third, the US sees Africa as a battleground of influence. A recent article described Africa as one of the world's most important geopolitical theaters, one that has thus far eluded a sustained, substantial US strategy. So when a large offer of billions is made, or rumored, it must be seen not just as development aid but as strategic investment and influence. American Security Project +1. Wikipedia +1. Newsweek. Let's break it down further. Suppose the $32 billion offer is real: infrastructure, security ties, resource access. For the US and allied Western powers this kind of deal ticks multiple boxes: access to critical minerals, foothold in a strategic region, reinforced alliances against China, Russia. But for the African state accepting it, the calculus is different. The offer may be tempting, but what do you give up? What are the conditions? Are local industries involved? Are local workers employed? Is there genuine local leadership? What happens if the economy doesn't deliver and you become indebted or lose leverage? And then there is public legitimacy. If citizens feel the deal benefits outsiders more than locals, political backlash looms. In the case of Traoré, the decision to refuse suggests he assessed the deal and decided the risks outweighed the benefits, or the terms were unacceptable. He sent a message: we will not simply be a client state of external powers. In the broader US view, this may be a setback. Refusing a large offer reduces Western influence, opens the door for rivals, and signals that the carrot approach is running into limits. Now let's compare Africa's posture and the US posture. On the African side, increasing agency, diversification, demand for fair terms, rising nationalism, security-first concerns, and skepticism of external models. On the US side, ambition to leverage Africa for strategic ends, shift toward trade and resources, but facing a credibility gap, competition, and rising African pushback. Agency and sovereignty stand out. Africa is saying, we will engage but not on your terms exclusively. The US and Western partners must recognize that. Resource and leverage. Africa has critical reserves, young population, strategic geography, but often lacks value-added capacity, governance structures, infrastructure. The US has technology, markets, military capability, but no guarantee Africa will accept its model without negotiation. Security and stability. African nations need security and development, not just armies or bases. The US primarily offers security frameworks and strategic trade but sometimes neglects the local dimension. Narrative and perception. For many Africans, NATO or Western forces evoke colonial legacies and unwanted influence. Accepting large Western-led deals can create domestic opposition. The US narrative must shift from, we help you, to, we partner you. What about the cost of acceptance versus refusal? If an African state accepts a massive deal, short-term gains could be realized, infrastructure built, investment flows in. But long-term risk, dependency, loss of autonomy, constrained policy space, local economic capture by foreign interests. If the state refuses, it retains autonomy, potential to chart its own path, diversify partnerships, but must have credible alternatives, and it faces slower progress or lower investment. Traoré's refusal is bold, but the question is, what is the alternative strategy for development and security? Let's return to the headline: Traoré refuses to sell Africa's soul. This dramatic wording reflects a real tension. External offers are more than money, they come with strategic demands, influence, and alignment. African leaders are increasingly aware of this, and they are rejecting deals that undermine long-term interests. What should both sides learn? For African leaders, do not jump at the largest check without reading the fine print. Demand local content, fair contracts, transparency, exit clauses, value added, local employment. Build internal capacity, diversify partners, strengthen regional institutions. Public legitimacy matters. For US and Western actors, recognize African agency. Partner with African-led priorities rather than impose Western models. Follow through, offer commitments you can deliver. Avoid overemphasizing security or strategic competition at the expense of development and local ownership. Looking ahead, what could happen? One scenario: some African states accept deals, but later find themselves facing unfavorable terms or dependency. Another: more states follow Traoré's lead and refuse large one-size-fits-all offers, instead pursuing diversified partnerships with China, Russia, Gulf states, regional blocs. Third, the US and Western powers may adjust, offering more flexible, partnership-driven deals that respect sovereignty. Either way, the world is shifting. In conclusion, this story matters because it is more than a deal. It is about sovereignty, strategy, and the future direction of a continent with immense potential. Africa is not a passive container for external ambitions. Leaders like Traoré, whether flawless or not, represent a growing refusal to just take the money without terms. For the United States and its allies, this is a wake-up call. Influence requires respect, delivery, and genuine partnership, not simply big figures and press releases. Thank you for watching. If you found this video thought-provoking, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Do you think refusing a major external offer is brave or risky? Would you accept if you were in charge? Let's talk in the comments. And as always, stay alert, stay informed, keep asking hard questions.